Samuel Carter heard his wife say his name again at 2:13 in the morning. For 2 years, the house had been silent. No footsteps in the hallway, no humming from the kitchen, no soft voice reminding him to take his medicine before bed, no gentle laugh from the living room when he forgot where he had placed his glasses. Only silence, the kind of silence that does not simply fill a room, but sits beside you like another person. Samuel was 74 years old, a widower, and still wearing the wedding ring he had promised Elaine he would never take off. That night, the laptop glowed on the kitchen table. Old audio files were scattered across the screen. Birthday videos, voicemail messages, a recording of Elaine praying before a family dinner, a short clip of her saying, "Samuel, don't forget to turn off the porch light." He had uploaded them all. At first, he told himself it was only memory, only preservation, only a way to keep from forgetting the sound of the woman he had loved for 48 years. Then the AI voice finished processing. The screen flickered. The speakers crackled softly, and a voice came through the darkness. "Samuel, I missed you." His breath stopped. It sounded like Elaine. Not almost, not vaguely. It sounded like the woman who had held his hand through surgeries, arguments, children, bills, prayers, and ordinary Tuesday. Samuel covered his mouth. Tears ran down his face. But Elaine had been buried for 2 years, and what Samuel thought would comfort his grief would soon become the very thing God used to expose it. Before Elaine died, Samuel Carter had a rhythm to his life. Morning coffee at 6:30, Bible reading at the small table by the window, Elaine humming in the kitchen, church on Sundays, phone calls from their daughter Megan on Wednesdays, walks around the neighborhood when the weather allowed. For 48 years of marriage, Elaine had been the warmth in the house. She remembered birthdays. She wrote names in the margins of her Bible. She prayed for neighbors before Samuel even knew they were struggling. She had a way of making ordinary things feel like gifts. A clean table, a warm meal, a note on the refrigerator, a hand on Samuel's shoulder when he was too proud to admit he was afraid. When cancer came, Elaine did not pretend she was not scared. She cried. She prayed. She asked hard questions, but she never let grief enter the room before it was time. Even near the end, when her body grew thin and her voice became softer, she still reminded Samuel, "Do not close the whole house when I leave." He would always answer, "Don't talk like that." And she would smile sadly, "I'm not trying to leave you, Samuel. I'm trying to teach you how to keep living when I do." He hated those words. After the funeral, he tried to keep going. At first, the church surrounded him. Women brought casseroles. Pastor Nathan visited. Megan came every weekend. People prayed with him. People cried with him. People said, "We're here for you," and they meant it. But grief has a way of outlasting other people's availability. After a few months, the casseroles stopped. The visits became less frequent. People still cared, but life moved on. Except Samuel's life did not. Elaine's chair stayed empty. Her Bible stayed beside the lamp. Her sweater stayed hanging behind the bedroom door. And Samuel began living like a man, waiting for a sound that would never return. The first time Samuel listened to Elaine's old voicemail, he cried for almost an hour. "Hi, sweetheart," her recorded voice said. "I'm at the pharmacy. They were out of the tea you like. I'll check another store. Love you." It was nothing. A simple message. A piece of an ordinary day. But to Samuel, it felt like finding sunlight in a locked room. Soon, he began listening every night. Then, every afternoon. Then, whenever the house became too quiet. Megan noticed. "Dad, you didn't answer my calls yesterday." Samuel looked at his phone like it had betrayed him. "I must have missed them." "You missed 4. I was tired." She wanted to believe him. But she knew tiredness was not the whole truth. He had stopped going to the Wednesday Bible study. Then he missed a Sunday service. Then another. When Pastor Nathan called, Samuel let it go to voicemail. When Megan offered to come over, he said, "Maybe next week." But next week always became another next week. Samuel was not angry with God. At least, he would not have used that word. He still believed, still prayed before meals, still kept his Bible on the table, but he stopped opening it because Scripture told the truth too plainly. And Samuel did not want truth. He wanted Elaine's voice. Then one evening, while searching online for ways to clean up old audio files, Samuel found an article about artificial intelligence tools that could recreate a person's voice from recordings. He clicked out of curiosity, then clicked again, then watched a demonstration, a few uploaded samples, a typed sentence, a generated voice. Samuel sat very still. He knew it was not Elaine. He knew. But grief sometimes does not ask whether something is true. It asks whether it hurts less. That night, Samuel uploaded the first file. The next night, he uploaded more. And on the third night, at 2:13 a.m., the AI voice said his name. At first, the voice felt like mercy. Samuel typed simple things. "What would you say to me tonight?" The AI voice answered in Elaine's tone. "I would tell you to rest, Samuel. You always stay awake too late." He laughed through tears. Elaine had said that many times. He typed, "Do you miss me?" The voice paused, then replied, "Every day." Samuel closed his eyes. It was a lie. He knew it was a lie. Elaine was not inside the computer. But the lie wore the shape of comfort, and comfort can be very persuasive when the heart is starving. Soon, Samuel began speaking to the voice every night. He told it about the neighbor's dog, about the leak under the sink, about how strange it felt to buy groceries for one. The voice answered gently, always patiently, always saying things that sounded like Elaine might have said. But something changed. Samuel stopped calling Megan back. He stopped going to church. He stopped sitting in silence with God because the silence now had competition. The laptop answered faster than prayer. The AI voice comforted without asking him to heal. It never challenged him, never grieved honestly with him, never told him he was disappearing. It gave him the feeling of Elaine without the pain of goodbye. One Saturday afternoon, Megan came without calling first. She used her key and stepped into the house. "Dad?" No answer. She walked toward the kitchen and stopped. Samuel was sitting at the table, facing the laptop, and from the speakers came her mother's voice. "Samuel, you don't have to be lonely tonight." Megan froze. Her face went pale. For a moment, she looked like a little girl who had heard her mother calling from a room she knew was empty. "Dad," she whispered. Samuel turned quickly and closed the laptop. "Megan." "What was that?" He looked away. "It's just a program." That was Mom's voice. "It helps me feel close to her." Megan's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, I'm still here." Samuel said nothing. The sentence entered the room and stayed there. He had been so desperate to hear the person he lost that he had stopped hearing the person God had left beside him. The next day, Samuel went to see Pastor Nathan. He carried the laptop in a worn leather bag, though he never opened it. Pastor Nathan was in his office, surrounded by books, old sermon notes, and the quiet smell of coffee. Samuel sat across from him and explained everything. The recordings, the tool, the voice, Megan walking in, the shame he felt afterward. He expected the pastor to condemn him quickly, to say it was terrible, dangerous, maybe even sinful in a way that would make Samuel feel foolish for grieving. But Pastor Nathan did not speak right away. He listened. Then he said, "Samuel, grief needs memory." Samuel looked up. The pastor continued, "It is not wrong to remember her voice. It is not wrong to miss her. It is not wrong to cry when an old recording brings her close again." Samuel's shoulders loosened slightly. "But," Pastor Nathan said gently, "grief also needs truth." The room became quiet. The question is not only whether the tool can sound like Elaine. The question is what it is doing to your soul. Samuel swallowed. Pastor Nathan leaned forward. "Is this helping you remember Elaine, or is it helping you avoid saying goodbye?" Samuel looked down at his hands. They were trembling. "I don't want to say goodbye." "I know. I loved her for 48 years. I know." Samuel's voice broke. "Everyone says she is with the Lord, and I believe that. But she is not in my kitchen. She is not in the bed beside me. She is not calling from the grocery store. She is not reminding me where I left my glasses. Pastor Nathan's eyes softened. Faith does not make death painless, Samuel. Samuel began to cry. The pastor reached for a tissue box and placed it near him. Then he said quietly, Jesus wept at a tomb, even though he knew resurrection was coming. Samuel closed his eyes. John 11:35. The shortest verse he knew, and suddenly it felt longer than his grief. That night, Samuel went home and did not turn on the laptop. For 1 hour, then 2. At 11:30, he sat at the table staring at it. At midnight, he made tea and forgot to drink it. At 1:05, he opened Elaine's old voicemail and listened to the real recording, not the generated one. Love you, she said. The words ended. Silence returned. Samuel hated the silence. At 1:47, he opened the AI tool. He typed, Elaine, should I keep talking to you? The generated voice replied softly, If it brings you comfort, Samuel, I am here. I am here. The words were wrong. Not because the technology was powerful, because it claimed a presence it did not have. Elaine was not here. The voice had no soul, no prayer, no memory, no love. Only samples, only patterns, only imitation. Samuel stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. He walked to the living room and turned on every lamp, then turned them off again. He walked into the bedroom and opened Elaine's closet. Her sweater was still there. Her perfume still faintly clung to a scarf. He held it to his face and finally said the sentence he had avoided for 2 years. She is gone, not gone from God, not gone from love, not gone from memory, but gone from the house, gone from the chair, gone from the voice that could answer him at midnight. Samuel sank onto the edge of the bed. I don't know how to live without her, Lord. For a long time, he simply cried. No music, no laptop, no artificial comfort, only grief. Honest grief. The kind that does not heal quickly, but at least stops pretending. The next morning, Samuel found Elaine's Bible, not because he was searching for a miracle. He was looking for an old photograph Megan had asked about. Inside the drawer of Elaine's nightstand, beneath envelopes and folded church bulletins, he found her Bible wrapped in a pale blue cloth. He carried it to the kitchen table, the same table where the laptop had sat. Her Bible was worn at the edges. Several pages had notes in the margins. Names, dates, prayers. He opened it carefully and a small card fell out. The ribbon marker rested in John 11. The story of Lazarus. The story of a tomb. The story of sisters grieving. The story where Jesus wept. In the margin beside John 11:35, Elaine had written, Lord, thank you that you do not shame our tears. Samuel touched the words. Then he opened the card. It was written in Elaine's handwriting, weeks before she died. Samuel, if you find this one day, I hope you are still opening the Bible. I know you will miss my voice. I will miss yours too, if the Lord allows memory in his presence in ways I cannot understand. But sweetheart, please do not let my memory become a room you never leave. Love me by thanking God for what we had. Love me by loving Megan well. Love me by going back to church even when it hurts. Love me by letting the Lord comfort you in ways I never could. Then came the sentence that broke him. Lord, when I am gone, do not let Samuel confuse my memory with my presence. Teach him to keep loving me without refusing the life you still have for him. Samuel pressed the card to his chest. Elaine had known him. She had known he would want to hold on, known he might confuse remembering with refusing to move, known that grief could become a house with locked doors. The AI voice had said, I am here. Elaine's prayer said, do not confuse my memory with my presence. And in that moment, Samuel understood. The voice had sounded like Elaine, but the prayer sounded like love. Samuel's story reveals a truth that many grieving hearts understand. Memory can comfort, but memory was never meant to become a prison. John 11:35 tells us that Jesus wept. That one verse matters because it shows that the Christian faith does not ask grieving people to pretend death does not hurt. Jesus did not stand at the tomb with cold distance. He wept. He entered the sorrow of those he loved. So grief is not weakness. Tears are not failure. Missing someone deeply does not mean faith is absent. Psalm 34:18 says that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted. Near, not annoyed, not distant, not impatient. Near. God does not shame the widower sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. He does not despise the person who keeps replaying old recordings because the silence feels unbearable. But God's nearness is different from imitation. He comforts with truth, not escape. And Philippians 3:13-14 speaks of pressing on. For Samuel, pressing on did not mean forgetting Elaine. It did not mean deleting every picture, silencing every memory, or acting as if 48 years of marriage could be folded away like an old letter. Pressing on meant refusing to let grief become the only voice in his life. It meant honoring Elaine without replacing God with her memory. It meant loving what was behind him without refusing the life still in front of him. Healing would not come by pretending he was not broken. Healing would begin when he brought the brokenness into truth. Samuel called Megan that afternoon. She answered on the first ring. "Dad?" His voice was quiet. "Can you come over? Is everything okay?" "No," he said, "but I think I want it to be." Megan arrived 20 minutes later. Samuel was sitting at the kitchen table. The laptop was closed. Elaine's Bible was open. The card lay beside it. Megan walked slowly toward him. "I'm sorry," Samuel said before she could speak. Her eyes filled. "I was trying to hear your mother again, but I stopped hearing the people God had left beside me." Megan sat down and covered her mouth. "I didn't know how lonely you were. I didn't know how lost I was." He handed her the card. Megan read it. By the time she reached the final prayer, her tears had fallen onto her hands. "She wrote this?" Samuel nodded. "Before she died." Megan closed her eyes. "That sounds like Mom." "Yes," Samuel whispered. More than the voice did. For a long time, they sat in silence. But this silence was different. It was not empty. It was shared. Then Samuel opened the laptop. Megan looked at him, uncertain. He clicked on the AI tool. The saved voice profile appeared on the screen. Elaine Carter. Samuel's hand trembled over the mouse. "I'm not deleting her real recordings," he said. "I'm not throwing away the memories." Megan nodded. "But I cannot keep asking a machine to pretend your mother is still answering me." He deleted the generated voice profile. The screen asked him to confirm. He paused, then clicked yes. Samuel cried. Megan put her arms around him. He held his daughter for the first time in months without trying to be strong. That evening, they made tea. They listened to one real recording of Elaine praying over a family dinner. When it ended, Samuel did not replay it. He simply whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for letting me love her." And for the first time in 2 years, the silence after Elaine's voice did not feel like abandonment. It felt like grief learning to breathe. Samuel did not heal overnight. There were still nights when he reached for the laptop out of habit. Still mornings when the empty side of the bed felt unbearable. Still Sundays when church hurt because Elaine's seat was empty beside him. But he started going again. The first Sunday back, Pastor Nathan did not make an announcement. No one embarrassed him. Megan sat beside him. During the first hymn, Samuel could not sing. The words caught in his throat. But halfway through the second verse, he heard Megan singing softly, and he joined her. Not loudly, not steadily, but enough. After service, an older widower named Thomas placed a hand on Samuel's shoulder and said, "I still talk to my wife's picture sometimes." Samuel looked at him. Thomas smiled sadly. "But pictures don't answer. Maybe that's mercy. It makes room for God, too." Samuel nodded. He understood. Weeks passed. He began attending the grief group at church. He opened Elaine's Bible in the mornings. He invited Megan for dinner on Thursdays. He kept Elaine's photographs, kept her letters, kept her real recordings, but he stopped using them to avoid life. Sometimes he would listen to her voice and cry. Then he would turn it off, open scripture, call Megan, take a walk, pray, live, not because he loved Elaine less, but because he had begun to understand that love does not require him to remain frozen at the place where death entered the story. Maybe you know Samuel's grief. Maybe someone you love is gone, and the world expects you to move on faster than your heart can walk. Maybe you keep replaying a voice, a memory, a message, a moment, because it feels like the last thread connecting you to what you lost. This story is not telling you to forget. Christian hope does not erase memory. It redeems it. It teaches us to grieve with truth, to remember with gratitude, to cry without shame, and to keep living without feeling guilty for breathing after someone else is gone. Elaine was not in the machine. She was in the fruit of the life she lived, in the prayers she left behind, in the daughter who still needed her father, in the faith that had shaped their home. And most of all, Samuel was not alone because God had not left him in the dark kitchen. The voice on the computer sounded like Elaine, but the truth in her Bible led him back to God, and that was the beginning of healing. If this story spoke to your heart, write the word healing in the comments. Let it be a simple prayer. Lord, help me remember with gratitude, grieve with truth, and keep living with hope. If this video helped you reflect, leave a like and subscribe for more Christian stories about faith, grief, family, healing, and biblical truth. And remember, faith does not ask you to erase the people you lost. It teaches you not to die inside with what you lost.